Join the Raiders Report family and hit that subscribe button. We are 50 subs away from 138,000. So if you want to join the #1 most watched Raiders channel on YouTube, take a second, look down there. See that subscribe button? I want you to click it. And you see that bell? I also want you to turn that on. That way you never miss any Raiders news or rumors. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. And before we get into the latest around Josh Jacobs, today's show is presented by Manscaped. I know Patrick B. manscapes. Why? Savannah Jean told me. And if you want to manscape as well, go to manscaped.com. Use code Raiders for 20% off. And you're going to be able to get free shipping on the best male grooming products out there. So coming up on today's show, I would say the top 2 questions that I continually to get asked, the top 2 questions that are circulating around, we'll call it Raiders social media, is number 1, will the Raiders extend Josh Jacobs? They got until July 17th, Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And then number 2 is, if the Raiders don't reach an agreement with number 8, then what exactly happens? I am going to answer both of those questions on today's show. So the latest here around Jacobs is this. According to Vic Tafur of The Athletic, the Raiders' negotiations with Jacobs are expected to go to the wire. And if you don't know what the wire means, that literally means all the way up until the deadline. So Josh's team, the Raiders, McDaniels, Ziegler, they're going to continue to have conversations that are going to lead all the way up until that deadline. The very first time that a deal was presented to Jacobs in terms of an actual extension was this past Saturday. So the expression that deadlines make deals is 100% accurate in this entire regard. But the fact that Jacobs was given the franchise tag all the way back in, March, February at this point, he has yet to sign that. He's been very vocal on social media. He's also been very vocal to people who I have talked to, and he's just simply expressing the fact that he doesn't believe that he deserves to play on the franchise tag. He believes after the season that he's had, the 4 seasons that he's had for his entire career, he deserves to get paid, and he wants to make some actual money because he knows this is his time to get that paycheck. So what do you guys think here? I don't know if I've ever even asked this question yet this week, right? I laugh because I feel like I ask it every show. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Will the Raiders give Josh Jacobs a contract extension? My answer on Jacobs is this. I do think that McDaniels and Ziegler, they're going to have a good conversation with Josh, and they're going to be able to come to agreement with a contract extension. However, when you listen to the words of Vic Tafur from The Athletic, I'm telling you this right now, you guys can read this quote the way that you want it. He doesn't sound nearly as confident in terms of getting that deal done. Here's what he had to say on why the Raiders wouldn't pay Josh. He lists 3 reasons. 1, the Patriots have never paid top running backs top dollar, and McDaniels and Raiders general manager Dave Ziegler want to stay true to their former boss Bill Belichick's model. 2, the NFL has devalued running backs annually, and it hasn't been wrong. Rookies and free agents have mostly performed well when plugged into teams with solid offensive lines. And 3, the big one, the Raiders have no idea what they want to be. That final statement there by Vic is simply saying, when you look at the Raiders last offseason, they traded for Devontae Adams. They went out and signed Chandler Jones. They had huge contract extensions with Max Crosby, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Derek Carr. When teams do that type of stuff, it means that, hey, I'm in win now mode. I'm trying to go out and chase a Super Bowl ring. Fast forward 1 year later after a 6-11 season, now everything just sounds like, oh, rebuild, which I don't think is necessarily fair because, let's face it, they tried to win. They were unable to do it. So that's where Vic is simply saying, this team doesn't know where they stand. If they can go out there and win games, they're going to go out there and try to win games. But then they could also say, well, hey, this was a rebuild season after all, since the record probably doesn't matter all that much. Now, today's show, y'all, is presented by Manscaped, and you can save 20% off and get free shipping on all of Manscaped's products. They don't only have products that make your downstairs look great. They also have a ton of products that make your belly button and up region also look pretty good. I have been told that my beard game is strong, which I agree with. Why? I use Manscaped products. I've also been told that another part of my game is pretty strong as well. Why? Because I use Manscaped products. Studies show, what do women like? People who smell good, people who are attractive, people who look presentable. And even if you're sitting there saying, you know what, Mitch, I might not be an 8, I may not be a 9, I may not be a 10, but you know what, ma'am? If you at least put the effort forward and to make sure that you're groomed in all the right areas and make sure that you're smelling great, you're going to be a lot luckier. That I can promise you. And it is Smooth Sack Summer after all. And with 52% off right now with a Platinum package, $119.99 with promo code Raiders, it is one hell of a deal. You're going to be able to get your Manscaped deodorant. You're going to be able to get your Weed Whacker. So if you got some gnarly nose hairs sticking out, you can get rid of them. We got shampoo, we got conditioner, we got ball toner, ball deodorant. At the end of the day, man, if you're not taking advantage of the deals that we have here with Manscaped, that's on you. That's on you. So go enjoy all their awesome products. I promise you, she's going to like it too. Code Raiders, manscaped.com. All right, we're going to continue to look at and talk about Josh Jacobs because the thing that we talked about yesterday was the newest report from Josh. He sat down with Fox 5 reporter and essentially told her that if a deal is not made by 4 p.m. Eastern time, he's not going to be at training camp, which I really don't think should surprise many people considering the fact of he hasn't signed the franchise tag, he doesn't need to show up for training camp, and he's not expected to be there. And if I'm Jacobs, I'm like, well, shit, I showed up for training camp last year, and y'all played me in the Hall of Fame game, and then I ran for 1,600 yards and had 2,000 yards of total offense. Like, I'm not going to do that. With veterans reporting July 25th, the thing that I really want you to look at here on screen is the thing that I was told a few days ago, which was he doesn't want to play on the tag. And if he doesn't get that contract extension and he ends up holding out of training camp, McDaniels and Ziegler's not going to like that. And Josh is going to be upset. I'm talking about Jacobs. Jacobs is going to be upset the fact that he didn't get his extension. So now you got a really ugly marriage starting to brew. And I was told by a source that it could get ugly. Which, what does that mean? Because the last thing that McDaniels and Ziegler want is, okay, Josh, hey, man, we didn't get you that contract extension. You're now going to make $10.1 million guaranteed. What if Jacobs just says, that money's guaranteed? I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to put my body on the line for a team because I know they're not going to pay me the money. Then what does he do? He puts his feet up, doesn't put as much effort forward, doesn't buy into what the Raiders are doing the following offseason, says, get me the hell out of here. Or he's like, all right, if you guys aren't going to pay me, I'm going to demand a trade, and I'm going to go elsewhere. And then you could have another scenario where, what if the relationship gets so bad that McDaniels and Ziegler are like, we're trying to build something here. You were a captain for us last season. If you're not willing to go all in and buy into what we're selling, like the Raiders, this organization, this regime right now, I'm telling you what, they're not going to F around. And if Jacobs F's around, he might find out. Here's the other thing, though. If the Raiders F around, they might find out that they really need Josh Jacobs. So if the Raiders trade Jacobs, or if Jacobs demands a trade, I'll tell you this right now, Las Vegas is not getting a first-round pick. Why? Not that Jacobs isn't worth a first-round pick. He absolutely is. And if they would have tried to trade him back before the NFL draft all the way up in April, they probably got a first-rounder. But now the draft has come and gone. Free agency has come and gone. Trades have already happened. So how many teams necessarily are looking for that star running back to pay a lot of money, and then you got to give up draft capital for? The answer, not many. So to me, when I think about Josh, teams aren't trying to trade for running backs right now. And then especially when you think of everything that it's going to take to get Josh. Because if I'm the Raiders, I want a second-round pick, at least. Honestly, I want a first-round pick for the guy who just led the NFL in basically scrimmage yards last season. I would want a first-rounder. Chances are you're probably not going to get that. Okay, so now I'm an NFL team, and I'm sitting here going, well, do I want to trade a second-round pick for Josh Jacobs? I could do that. If I trade for him, well, now I got to make him arguably one of the highest-paid running backs in the NFL, because if you make that type of trade, you're showing Josh that you have that type of commitment to him, and now you're going to have to pay him, I'm going to say $15 million per year. And I don't really think many NFL teams are going to do that. So if I'm Jacobs, I also have to look at myself in the mirror and be like, man, I got to learn from history, because there was another running back, very, very talented this offseason. Like, that said, put me on the trade market if you're not going to pay me. And recently, Austin Eckler has talked about how he is ticked off that third-string wide receivers, and when I say third string, I mean the third best wide receiver on a team makes more money than him, which I 100% agree with Eckler. It's effed up. It's not right. But that's the world that we live in right now with the running back market because they are replaceable. And when you think about Eckler asking for a trade, like the numbers he put up on the ground last season, 915 yards, 13 touchdowns. But guess what? Even a running back that can catch the football the way that Eckler does. I love Josh Jacobs. He is nowhere in the world or realm that Eckler is in terms of being able to catch the ball. And Eckler, with 107 catches, 722 yards, and 5 touchdowns last season, way better than Christian McCaffrey type of numbers, couldn't find a trade suitor. Do you know why? Because if NFL teams are sitting here going, why am I going to trade for a running back that wants to get paid all this money when, if I want to, I can go to the free agency pool right now, which has Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, and James Robinson? Are any of these running backs as good as Jacobs? No. Are any of these running backs as talented as Austin Eckler? No. Are any of these guys even close to those two? No, I do not think so. However, if an organization, if the NFL believes that, hey, man, if I got a great offensive line, I can then pay Dalvin Cook $5 million a year compared to paying Josh Jacobs $14 million to a running back by committee, that's the way that the NFL is trending. Why? Because it's worked. Like, it's a copycat league, and the fact that it's worked, that's what hurts Josh Jacobs. That's what hurts Saquon Barkley. That's what hurts all running backs right now. Is it unfair to RBs? Yes, it is. But, hey, sometimes business is business, and all these guys are trying to do is win football games after all. And it has shown winning football games doesn't make sense to pay your running back a lot of money. So let's just say this. If the Raiders are forced to trade Jacobs, either Jacobs says, all right, y'all aren't going to pay me, ship me the hell out, which could potentially happen. I don't know if it will happen. You never know how these negotiations end up going down. From what I understand, both sides want to have a good relationship. But when money starts getting involved, I mean, divorce can absolutely happen. So my question is this. If the Raiders are forced to trade Jacobs, or if McDaniels and Ziegler are like, all right, man, if you're just going to pout and whine, we wanted you to be a leader, we're going to get you the hell out of here. Who's going to be the Raiders' number one running back this upcoming season? Are they going to go out and sign a free agent? Are they going to rely on somebody in their own current backfield? Who will be the Raiders' RB1? And coming up here after this YouTube ad break, you're going to get my answer. The top Jacobs replacement, and this really shouldn't surprise many people that I'll say legitimately follow along with the Raiders, with the silver and black, it's Zamir White. They drafted him in 2022 in the 4th round out of Georgia, and everybody who I talk to tells me that Zamir is in, I'm going to laugh a little bit here, the best shape of his life. But I do think for Zamir, he understands the opportunity that might be there. Like, he has the opportunity to step into a backfield, be the number one running back for a team that had the number one rushing leader last season. Do I think Zamir is ready to replace Jacobs? No, I do not. Is he in the same realm of talent of Jacobs? No, he isn't. But I do think Zamir can be a solid running back, and then if you're able to sprinkle in a little bit of Amir Abdullah, if you're able to also use the Sincere McCormick, a Britton Brown when need be, like, you can get by with a running back by committee. There's no doubt about it. So to me, I understand that this whole thing could turn ugly, which is where I'm going to go back here with Jacobs, because this could get ugly. It could get ugly for the Raiders. It could get ugly for Jacobs. And when you are looking forward and you're really trying to build what McDaniels and Ziegler are trying to build, you cannot afford to have somebody making $10.1 million of guaranteed money mad about it, right? Like, I want Jacobs to show up fired up. I want him to be ready, locked and loaded to be that type of bell cow running back that we know he can be. And what I'm worried about is, well, if he doesn't want to play on the franchise tag and he doesn't get that contract extension, he's going to pout a little bit. Now, at the Chat Sports office, when, I'm just going to be honest with y'all, when we get comments in our, videos, and we check out our comments all the time because that's part of our job here. And there's certain people that when they comment on stuff, they whine a little bit. So I'm going to read this in my whiny Raiders Report YouTube voice. But Meech, Didn't Josh Jacobs say he would be okay playing on the franchise tag? Yes, he did say he'd be okay playing on the franchise tag. But he said the only way he'd be willing to play on that franchise tag is if the Raiders built a very talented team around him. Here's the bottom line. Jacobs doesn't feel like the Raiders did that. So by him not feeling that they did that, he doesn't feel like that he has that responsibility to play on the franchise tag. I'm going to go all the way back to February 9th. Chris Sims interviews Josh Jacobs, and here's where the whole he'd be okay to play on the franchise tag. Essentially, it was he'd be okay to play on the franchise tag, but only if the team loaded up at other positions and added players around him. That's where that quote falls in line. If you want me to come back as the hero, you better pay me like a hero. So there's where Jacobs is telling you, McDaniels and Ziegler, if you want me to come back and be that bell cow on a team that you're not actually trying to win games for, then you better pay me like it. If you're not willing to pay me, then I'm going to come back as the villain. He's literally telling you what he's going to do. I don't need a villain on this team. We need to go out and have one hell of a team. And if he doesn't believe the Raiders built a roster good enough for him to accept the franchise tag, Raiders need to be able to accept that, because if we're asking him to sign the tag, I think that's something that at the end of the day, we need to sit back and say, he told us, and now we made the decision, we got to live with it. So let's continue to look here on Jacobs and the entire situation. If Josh Jacobs doesn't believe in the team that the Raiders have built, then why should Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler give him a contract extension? Would you give a running back an extension that is literally telling you that he doesn't believe in the team that you've built? I think it's an honest question. Like, there's not going to be many people up here that can give me an argument that Josh doesn't deserve to get his money. He does. He was the best offensive player that the Raiders had last season, and that's with a guy like Davante Adams. He has the opportunity to be the face of the offense. He is a captain on this team. The Raiders want him to be a part of the mix, but they also want the motivated Josh. I don't want an 80% Josh Jacobs, because that's just not what you're paying for, in my opinion. So if it's true that the Raiders' 2023 season record, and this has been reported by many people out there, doesn't matter, if I'm going to sit up here and say that the Raiders' record doesn't matter, then why would the Raiders pay Jacobs? Like, that's an honest-to-God question. Because if I'm a fan and I'm saying, all right, y'all are going to make me do this crazy stuff, sending my family out to Las Vegas where it costs all this money, I need to also know, are you trying to win games or not? And I think that's also one thing Jacobs wants to know. Are you guys trying to win games or not? I think it's a legitimate question. So why pay Jacobs, right? These are the top two reasons why a payday ends up going down. I think the biggest, number one thing that would be smart from a financial standpoint is if the Las Vegas Raiders are trying to win games, you make this Jacobs thing work. If you legitimately don't care what your record is in 2023 and you don't care about winning games, then yeah, I don't know if you need to pay Jacobs, because it doesn't matter anyway. The only reason why you pay a running back on a contract extension is if you are legitimately trying to win games. I'll also say the other reason is Ziegler, right? He's been a mastermind with contracts, and if you front load the deal and you make a lot of guarantees and then you give yourself an out clause in case it doesn't work, then I do think that makes sense instead of handcuffing yourself, kind of like what the Dallas Cowboys did with Ezekiel Elliott. If you give Jacobs a contract extension, it's got to be 3 years, and that has to be the max. The other reason why you pay Jacobs is McDaniels and Ziegler, right? They can do all these things that they want. Jeremy Chuggs and I, we can do what we want here on the Raiders Report, but I know this. If my boss walks in here, and if Mark Davis looks at both McDaniels and Ziegler and says, you're going to pay Josh Jacobs, guess what happens? They're going to end up paying Josh Jacobs, because it's his money at the end of the day. So when you talk about Vic Tafur earlier saying he wasn't confident, Tafur also, though, said in his article that Mark Davis is sitting in Josh Jacobs' corner. Davis is clearly in Jacobs' corner as he views the running back as an old-school Raider with his toughness, running the ball, and also managing injuries to get back on the field and shoulder more of the load. This is an exact quote from Davis this offseason. He was the heart of our team last year. If we had 22 Josh Jacobses with that mentality, that guy is just amazing. So when you're owner, and I don't know if I've ever thought I'd ever say Josh Jacobses, right? But seriously, if your owner's saying, hey, man, if we had 11 guys on defense that play as hard as Jacobs does, if we had 11 guys on offense that play as hard as Jacobs does, the fact that Mark Davis is in his corner, that is going to be a big-time thing. And, you know, Davis, he's a businessman, and he will be the first person to tell you, I don't know a lot about football, right? That's why I let McDaniels do it. That's why I let Ziegler do that. But you got to give Mark at least a little bit of credit. He has really done a good job being able to move the Raiders to Las Vegas, which credit to him. But Davis also knows when you're in a city like Las Vegas, and some of y'all might laugh at this, but the Las Vegas Aces, they just won a championship. The Las Vegas Golden Knights just won a championship. And then there's the Las Vegas Raiders that just went 6-11 last season, and they've had a lot of drama off the field around that football team. If you're trying to put butts in seats and you want to avoid what happened in Week 17, Week 18, where the 49ers and Chiefs took over Allegiant Stadium, you need star power. That's what Las Vegas is. People with star power go to Las Vegas, whether you're an entertainer, whatever it is. That's what Las Vegas represents. And if you're going to ask people to pay the amount of money to just watch a Raiders game, then you better have some star power that you're trying to sell. I mean, look at these numbers right here according to Ticket IQ, okay? Las Vegas has an average price of $1,035 per game. That is 28% higher than the next most expensive ticket, the New England Patriots at $806. Last season's NFC champions follow them, the Philadelphia Eagles, at $642. The defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, at $607. And then the San Francisco 49ers at $591. It is tough to ask any fan to go watch a team that reporters have literally said it doesn't matter what the record is in 2023. That has been well reported. And if that's the case, how are you going to convince me? How are you going to convince Patrick B? How are you going to convince Rebel Montana? How are you going to convince Trivan? Diehard Raider fans, mediocre Raider fans, to spend over $1,000 per ticket, and on top of that, the flight, on top of that, the hotel, on top of that, food, drinks, everything in Las Vegas. I mean, I talk to people all the time. I know one man, he takes his wife, and there's 2 kids out to Las Vegas to go watch Raiders game. That entire weekend for him is $5,000 to $6,000. That is an insane amount of money to watch a team if you're not trying to win football games. So what does Josh Jacobs do? Yes, it might be a little bit money up front for Mark Davis, Ziegler, and whoever. But it also helps puts butts in seats, which helps pays for that stadium. So to me, on this entire Josh Jacobs situation, I do believe that the Raiders give Jacobs an extension. And if they don't, Josh will realize that there isn't a team trying to trade for and pay big money to a running back. So he will be forced to play on the franchise tag. I think Josh is a smart guy. I think, unfortunately, for him, it's a little bit of a difficult situation right now with the running back market the way that it is. But I can promise you this. He is a hell of a running back, and if they give him a contract extension, when they give him a contract extension, he's going to go out there and he's going to ball out. He's going to give you everything he's got. He wants to be a Raider. McDaniels and Ziegler also want him to be a Raider. And I do think he's got to have that unfortunate look himself in the mirror type of moment and be like, man, it's not me. It's just the running back market right now ain't that. I do think, though, that the Raiders come Monday, Jacobs come Monday, man, they're going to get a deal together, and it's going to be before that deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Reminder, though, when Jacobs' deal is done, we will be live here on the Raiders Report, and if for whatever reason it doesn't get done, it's not going to be me. It's going to be Jeremy Chuggs live here on the Raiders Report. I don't want you to miss that. Hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications.